He freed a chained alien warrior, now she calls for him, even in dreams. Captain Elias Riker moved carefully across the cracked stone floor of the ruined fortress, his boots crunching against fragments of metal and dust. The air smelled of smoke and decay, and distant thunder rolled across the jagged mountains surrounding the ancient city. He paused for a moment, listening. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the energy scanner in his hand. Something was down, here something alive. His team of 3 human explorers followed closely behind, their eyes wide with tension. This planet, Jathra X, had been abandoned for centuries. Once it had been home to a powerful alien civilization, but now it lay in ruins, a graveyard of towers and broken monuments. Yet rumors persisted of a hidden chamber beneath the fortress, a place where the last survivors of a great war might have stored powerful artifacts. Elias was not interested in artifacts. He wanted answers, and maybe if luck was with him, he might discover something no human had ever seen. They reached the entrance to a narrow tunnel, its walls lined with jagged stone. The scanner beeped faster as Elias approached. "Stay close," he whispered, motioning for the others to follow. He stepped into the tunnel, feeling the air grow colder with every step. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, almost as if the fortress itself was alive. At the end of the tunnel, they found a chamber hidden beneath layers of rubble. Elias cleared the debris with careful swings of his plasma cutter, and as the last rocks fell away, the team gasped. Before them lay a massive figure, chained to the floor by glowing energy restraints. The figure was humanoid in shape, but taller and more powerful than any human. Her skin shimmered with a faint silver hue, and her eyes, closed now, held an intensity that seemed to burn even in sleep. Elias stepped forward, heart pounding. He had expected artifacts, maybe even skeletal remains, but not this a living being. "She's alive," muttered Mara, his second in command, her voice barely audible. Elias nodded, his mind racing. He studied the chains first. They were unlike anything human technology could produce. The energy pulsed with a steady rhythm, and the metal clasps glowed with power. This was clearly some form of suppression device, designed not just to hold, but to weaken and control. The alien stirred. Her eyes snapped open, revealing irises of deep violet that seemed to pierce straight into his soul. Elias froze. He had faced death on battlefields across the galaxy, but the intensity of her gaze made him feel small, exposed, and strangely connected all at once. For a long moment, neither spoke. Ilias's team watched in tense silence, unsure if the warrior would attack or retreat. Then, slowly, she raised her head, her expression unreadable. She did not speak, at least not in any language Elias knew. Yet, somehow, he understood the meaning. She was waiting for him to make a choice. Elias swallowed and knelt beside the chains, scanning the mechanisms. "We don't know what she is capable of," he said softly, but leaving her like this. "It isn't right," he turned to Mara. "I'm going to free her." "Cover me?" Mara hesitated, then nodded, her hand hovering over her weapon. The rest of the team spread out, ready for anything. Elias focused on the chains. They hummed and pulsed as he approached, and he realized brute force would not work. Instead, he studied the patterns, tracing the energy flow with the scanner. Hours or maybe minutes. He could not tell past as he adjusted his tools, redirected power, and slowly weakened the suppressive field. Finally, with a quiet hiss, the chains dissolved into sparks of fading light. The alien warrior flexed her hands as if waking from a long sleep. She looked at Elias again, and this time, something passed between them, a recognition, an unspoken bond that transcended language. She stood, her height dwarfing his, her presence commanding. Elias held up his hands. "I'm not your enemy," he said calmly. "I want to help you." Alien tilted her head, studying him, then spoke. Her voice was strange, melodic, but human ears could barely understand. Words seemed to form from thought, like a song carried on the wind. Elias could not comprehend them, but he felt the meaning clearly. Gratitude, confusion, and a question. "Do you understand me?" Mara whispered. Elias shook his head. "Not exactly." But she knows I freed her. That is enough for now. The warrior moved slowly toward the chamber's exit, testing her limbs. Her movements were precise, almost like a dance, and Elias realized she was a trained fighter. Not just a soldier, but a warrior of legendary skill. He had read about alien combat techniques, but nothing prepared him for this. Every motion was calculated, powerful and graceful. As she regained strength, she paused and looked back at him. Elias felt a strange pull, as if she could reach into his mind. That night, as he tried to sleep in the ruined fortress, he dreamed of her. In the dream, she was running through fields of silver grass, calling to him without words, her voice echoing in his mind. He woke with a start, feeling both fear and fascination. The next day, Elias learned more about her. Using translations from ancient alien inscriptions on the walls, he discovered her name, Kaliera. She had been captured by a merciless empire that enslaved her people, forcing them to fight as gladiators in arenas across countless star systems. The chains had suppressed not only her body, but her spirit. And now, free of them, she radiated a strength he had never imagined in any human or alien. Kaliera did not speak in words, but her actions communicated clearly. She moved with purpose, testing the fortress for weaknesses, examining their surroundings, and silently watching Elias. He could sense her curiosity and caution, her intelligence and memory of battles fought long ago. Yet there was no malice, only a hunger for freedom and justice. Over the following days, Elias and his team worked to understand the fortress's technology. Kaliera assisted, guiding them to hidden passages, activating devices, and demonstrating abilities that seemed almost magical to human eyes. She was quick, efficient, and endlessly observant. One evening, as Elias rested against a wall, exhausted from a day of exploration, he felt it again, her call. It was not sound, but thought, echoing softly in his mind. He could not see her, but he felt her presence as clearly as if she stood beside him. In the dream that followed, he saw fragments of her past, battles, victories, and the pain of chains that had held her for years. When he awoke, Elias realized something profound. The connection was mutual. Kaliera could reach him, and he could sense her, even when she was awake. It was a bond forged not by words, but by trust, courage, and the shared experience of survival. The fortress was not safe, Elias knew. Patrols from the alien empire would detect the energy signature of the freed warrior eventually. Yet he felt no fear, not for himself, but for the opportunity before him. This was more than a rescue. It was a chance for humanity to prove something extraordinary: compassion, courage, and ingenuity could change the course of a life, a war, even an entire species. As night fell over the jagged mountains, Elias watched Kaliera move silently through the chamber. She paused, turned her gaze toward him, and nodded, once a gesture of acknowledgement and trust. He knew then that this was only the beginning. What they faced ahead would be dangerous, perhaps deadly, but together they could accomplish what neither could achieve alone. He lay down to rest, the memory of her eyes burning in his mind. Kaliera's presence lingered even as sleep took him, and he welcomed the strange comfort of it. Somewhere out there, she was free. And she had chosen him not as a master, not as a savior, but as a companion in the fight to come. Outside the fortress, the winds of Jathara Ix whispered through broken towers and ruined streets. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, echoing the unrest of a galaxy, unaware of the spark ignited in this small, hidden place. Humanity had made a choice. Compassion had triumphed over fear, and somewhere in dreams and reality alike, a warrior's call was answered. Elias did not know what awaited them beyond the walls of the fortress. He only knew that he had done the right thing, and for the first time in a long while, he felt hope not just for himself, but for the universe. The morning light barely reached the depths of the ruined fortress, but Kaliera moved with a grace that made the shadows her own. Her silver-toned skin glimmered faintly in the dim glow, and her violet eyes scanned every corner with a sharp intelligence that seemed impossible for any being held in chains for so long. Elias Riker watched her carefully from a distance, his curiosity mingled with awe. She was not just strong, she was remarkable, almost beyond human comprehension. "Do you think she's angry at us?" Mara asked softly, keeping her voice low as they observed Kalira. Elias shook his head. "No, she's cautious." "That's different from anger," he said. "She's learning about us, and we're learning about her." Kalira paused near a fallen archway and crouched, touching the cracked stones with careful fingers. Her movements were precise, controlled, almost ritualistic. Elias noticed that she seemed to sense the fortress differently than humans did. She listened to the vibrations in the walls, touched the metal with careful intent, and even smelled the air, as if it carried secrets. It was clear she had survived battles far beyond anything humans had experienced. Over the next few days, Elias tried to communicate with her. He brought ancient alien inscriptions to study, translating them as best as he could. Kalira responded with gestures, subtle shifts in her posture, and occasional sounds that resembled words, but were unlike anything human ears could understand. Yet slowly, Elias began to grasp the meaning. She was teaching him in the only way she could through observation, action, and resonance. One evening, as the three humans sat by a small fire in the fortress courtyard, Elias felt it again, the call. It came without warning, subtle at first, like a whisper brushing the edges of his thoughts. Then it grew stronger, more insistent. He clutched his head, startled, and Mara noticed immediately. "You okay?" she asked. I think she's calling me," he whispered. "I can feel her. I don't understand it, but she's trying to reach me." Mara frowned. "Reach you? How? I don't know. It's like she's in my mind. Not hurting me, just present there." Closed his eyes and focused. A rush of images flashed in his mind. Kalira running across alien plains, fighting creatures taller than humans, chains snapping from her wrists. Her people looking at her with awe and fear. He could feel her emotions: fear, anger, hope, longing. It was overwhelming, yet oddly comforting. He opened his eyes and Mara looked at him with disbelief. "You're dreaming while awake? Something like that?" Elias said. He stood and walked toward the inner chamber where Kalira now trained herself. "She's not just calling me. She's sharing herself, her memories, her past, and I think she trusts me." Kalira paused mid-motion when she noticed him. Her violet eyes softened slightly, as if acknowledging him in a way that words could not express. Elias stepped closer, holding out his hand. She didn't take it, but she didn't back away either. It was progress. As days passed, the bond between them grew stronger. Elias learned to anticipate her movements, to understand her gestures. Kalira, in turn, seemed to recognize the humans as allies, though always cautiously. When she trained, Elias noticed her fighting style combined raw power with precise technique. She could take down a training dummy in seconds, yet she avoided unnecessary force, a control born from discipline and experience. One night, Elias dreamed again. This time, it was not just her past he saw, but visions of the galaxy beyond the fortress. Planets burned under alien conquest, fleets of ships patrolled the void, and countless lives hung in the balance. Kalira's voice echoed in his mind, urgent and clear. He could not understand her words, but the meaning was unmistakable. She needed him. Not just now, but for what was coming. Elias woke with a start, heart racing. Mara, who had stayed nearby, watched him carefully. "What is it?" she asked. "She's calling for help. Not for herself, but for something bigger. Her people, her empire. I think she's trying to warn us." Mara's expression darkened. "You mean trouble?" "Yes. And we need to be ready." "Yes." The very next day, Elias and his team began reinforcing the fortress's defenses. Kalira moved among them, demonstrating ways to use alien technology to hide their presence. She activated barriers that shimmered like liquid, concealed doors, and even small automated drones that patrolled the corridors. Elias marveled at her efficiency and intelligence. Humans could learn from her, and she from them, forming a partnership neither fully understood, but both trusted. Late that night, Elias felt the call again, drifted into a deep dream, more vivid than ever before. Kalira appeared beside him. Fully awake in the dream, her violet eyes locked onto his. They ran together through alien landscapes, leaping over chasms, fighting shadowy creatures that seemed drawn from nightmares. Elias could feel her strength coursing through him, guiding his own movements, teaching him instincts he had never known. When he awoke, he realized the dream had not been just a vision, it had trained him. His reflexes were sharper, his mind more alert. Mara noticed the difference immediately. "You look different," she said, "like you've learned something overnight." Elias smiled faintly. "I have." The bond between them became more than curiosity or gratitude. Elias understood that Kalira's calling was a lifeline, connecting human ingenuity with alien skill. They were stronger together. And yet danger loomed. The alien empire's patrols were vast and relentless. They would sense the disruption in the energy field, the sudden absence of the chained warrior. And they would come. It was not a question of if, but when. 2 days later, scouts arrived. Small ships hovered above the ruined city, their sensors sweeping for the escaped warrior. Elias spotted them first, the glint of alien metal against the morning sky. "They're here," he whispered, alerting his team. Kalira reacted instantly. She moved with terrifying speed, disappearing into the shadows, her form barely visible as she assessed the incoming threat. Elias realized that together they could turn the fortress into a trap. Human strategy, combined with her alien combat instincts, could give them a chance. As the patrols descended, Elias guided his team through hidden corridors, using the fortress's layout to their advantage. Kalira struck from the shadows, taking down the alien scouts silently and efficiently. She moved like a ghost, appearing where needed, vanishing before anyone could react. Elias felt her presence in his mind, calm and confident, guiding his decisions, warning him of danger before it came. The battle was brief, but intense. The humans and Kalira worked seamlessly together, outsmarting the scouts and forcing them to retreat. It was a small victory, but it was enough to prove something vital. Humans, when guided by courage, intelligence, and empathy, could survive even against far superior forces. After the patrols left, Kalira approached Elias. This time, she did not hesitate. She reached out, and though he could not fully feel it with human senses, he sensed her acknowledgement, her respect, and the bond that now tied them. He understood that she trusted him not just as a rescuer, but as a partner, someone who could face the dangers ahead alongside her. That night, Elias lay awake, listening to the wind outside the fortress. He felt the call again, not urgent this time, but calm, steady, like a pulse in his mind. Kalira was near, thinking of him, trusting him, even while he slept. Was it strange comfort, a reassurance that he was not alone in the darkness? He realized then that the bond between human and alien went beyond survival. It was a connection built on respect, trust, and shared purpose. Together, they could challenge the forces that had oppressed her people for centuries. They could change the course of events in a galaxy that often forgot the value of courage and empathy. Elias closed his eyes and allowed the images to wash over him once more. He saw Kalira standing before her people, chains shattered, eyes blazing with freedom. He saw the alien empire faltering, the first cracks appearing in its vast oppressive structure. And he saw himself not as a hero, not as a savior, but as someone chosen by circumstance and by courage, to stand alongside a warrior who had never known trust. Somewhere, in the silent corridors of the fortress, Kalira moved. Her presence was strong, silent, commanding. She did not speak, but Elias felt her thoughts. Clear as day, she would fight. She would survive, and together they would face whatever came next. Outside, the stars began to shine over Jethera Ix, distant points of light in a galaxy filled with darkness and uncertainty. Elias understood that the bond he shared with Kalira was rare, extraordinary, and dangerous. Yet, for the first time in a long while, he felt ready. Ready for the challenges ahead, ready for the battles to come. and ready to answer the call of a warrior who had reached him even in dreams. The universe was vast, and danger was never far. But together, human ingenuity and alien strength had become something unstoppable, something that could not be chained or silenced. And as Elias drifted into sleep once more, he felt her call not as a warning, but as a promise. They were no longer alone, and the future was theirs to shape. The ruined fortress had become a small fortress of hope in a galaxy dominated by fear and conquest. Elias Riker moved quickly through the corridors, checking his scanners and recalibrating sensors. Cholera followed silently, her violet eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, every movement. She was free now, but freedom came with responsibility and danger. The empire that had once enslaved her would not forget her escape. Elias gathered his team in the central chamber, a vast hall that had once been a place of council for the alien rulers of Jathara Ix. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the ceiling, illuminating the ancient carvings that told stories of war, victory, and betrayal. He ran his fingers over the faded symbols, feeling the weight of history. "We can't stay here forever," he said. "They'll find us if we linger too long. But this fortress gives us an advantage. We know it, Kylera knows it, and we can use it." Kylera stepped forward, her gaze fixed on a section of the wall where the carvings depicted battle formations. She pressed her hand against the stone. Elias saw a faint glow as hidden panels shifted, revealing corridors, escape routes, and concealed vantage points. He realized that this ancient warrior not only carried the strength of her people, but also the knowledge of centuries of strategy. Over the next several days, Elias and his team, guided by Kylera, fortified the fortress. They repaired old turrets, reactivated defense drones, and created hidden chambers that could be used to ambush enemies. Kylera demonstrated her combat, techniques moving so fast that even seasoned soldiers struggled to follow. She showed them how to anticipate attacks, how to use gravity shifts and energy pulses to disorient opponents, and how to strike with precision. Ilias watched her closely. The bond they had formed in dreams now extended into reality. They communicated without words, their instincts aligned. When Kylera paused, he understood. When he made a decision, she anticipated it. Together, they were more than a human team with an alien ally. They were a single unit, a force that combined intellect, courage, and skill. One morning, while scouting the perimeter, Elias spotted a patrol approaching from the ridge above the fortress. Small skiffs, sleek and silver, hovered just above the ground, their engines humming like angry insects. He signaled to Kylera, who melted into the shadows. Her movements were fluid, ghost-like. She positioned herself perfectly to strike. "Remember what we practiced?" Elias whispered to his team. "Stay calm. Let her guide us." The patrol moved closer, scanning for any signs of life. Kylera struck first, silently taking out a scout with a precise energy pulse that knocked the craft off balance. Another skiff reacted too late, and Elias's team used the distraction to disable it with their weapons. In minutes, the patrol was gone, leaving only a few scattered survivors who fled into the hills. Elias exhaled, feeling a rush of triumph. "Good work," he said, though his eyes never left Kylera. She nodded, but her expression was serious. She knew this was only the beginning. Over the next week, they worked tirelessly, training together and preparing for the inevitable return of the Empire's forces. Kylera's calls and dreams grew stronger. Teus found that he could sense not just her presence, but also fragments of her thoughts' warnings, strategies, even memories of battles that had taken place across the stars. It was overwhelming at times, but it gave him an edge he could not have gained alone. One night, as Elias rested against a wall in the central chamber, he felt the call again. This time, it was urgent. Kylera's thoughts were filled with images of the Empire's fleet moving through space. Their numbers vast, their intentions clear. They were coming for Haran, for anyone who had helped her. Elias rose quickly, waking his team. "They're on the move," he said. "We don't have much time." Kylera appeared beside him, her presence commanding and focused. Together, they studied the fortress's maps, marking points where the enemy could approach and identifying weak spots in their defenses. Elias suggested using old energy conduits as traps, while Calera recommended positions for ambushes and escape routes. Their minds worked as one, blending human ingenuity with alien experience. The following morning, the first wave of the Empire's fleet arrived. They did not send patrols this time. They came in force, skimming the terrain with engines roaring, weapons ready. Elias and his team held their positions, hearts pounding but minds clear. Calera moved silently among them, her movements precise. Every gesture calculated for maximum effect. The battle began with a flash of light as the Empire's weapons fired. Elias activated the traps, sending energy pulses and gravity shifts through the corridors. Skiffs crashed and tumbled, disoriented by the sudden changes. Calera struck from the shadows, her attacks devastating and efficient. She disabled enemy weapons, disarmed traps, and used her strength to throw attackers off balance. Elias coordinated the defense, using his knowledge of human strategy and the fortress layout to anticipate enemy moves. He directed his team to cover vulnerable areas, while Calera led strikes against high-value targets. Together, they created a rhythm, flow of attack and counterattack that the enemy could not predict. Hours passed, but neither side gave ground. Elias felt fatigue in his muscles, but he did not stop. Calera appeared beside him, whispering through their mental connection, guiding his hands, alerting him to threats. They moved as one, a single force against overwhelming odds. Finally, the Empire's fleet began to retreat, confused and battered by the combined strength of human ingenuity and alien power. Elias watched the last skiff disappear over the horizon, and Calera exhaled, a sound almost human in its relief. She looked at him, and he felt the acknowledgement of a bond forged in fire and battle. But victory was fleeting. Elias knew the Empire would return, stronger and more prepared. They had only won the first engagement, but it was enough to prove a point. Humans were not weak, and even a single ally from another world could tip the scales when courage and strategy combined. That night, Elias lay in the fortress, thinking about the battles ahead. Calera's call came again, softer this time, filled with images of her people, their history, their struggles, their hopes. He realized that the bond they shared was no longer just about survival. It was about trust, respect, and a shared vision for a future where humans and aliens could stand together against oppression. Over the next several days, Elias and Calera continued their work. They explored deeper into the fortress, discovering rooms filled with ancient weapons, armor, and records of battles fought long ago. Calera guided them through the technology, showing how it could be adapted for their defense. Elias marveled at her knowledge, realizing that her species had mastered tactics and strategy far beyond anything humans had developed. Yet he also recognized that human adaptability and creativity were equally valuable. Together, they were unstoppable. During one late-night patrol, Elias saw Calera standing on the edge of a collapsed tower, looking out at the stars. Her expression was unreadable, but he felt her thoughts in his mind: determination, hope, and a readiness to face whatever came next. He joined her, standing silently as the night sky stretched above them. "We've done well so far," he said quietly, "but they'll be back." Calera turned her eyes on him, and through their connection, he understood her response. Yes, they would return. But together, they would be ready. She trusted him, and he trusted her. The bond they had formed was more than strategy or skill, it was something deeper. Something that could not be broken by distance, fear, or even the might of an empire. As dawn approached, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fortress was no longer just a shelter, it was a symbol that humans could rise to the challenge, that courage and intelligence could change the outcome of a battle, even against a far stronger enemy. Calera's presence reminded him that they were not alone, that allies could be found in unexpected places, and that hope could exist even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. When the next wave of the Empire arrived, they would face a force united, disciplined, and prepared. Humans and aliens together, using every skill, every tactic, every ounce of strength at their disposal. Elias knew that the battles ahead would be difficult, that the Empire would adapt and strike harder, But he also knew this, as long as they fought together. As long as Kylera called to him and he answered, they could overcome anything. The stars above Jathara Ix shone cold and distant, but within the fortress, a fire burned. A fire of strategy, courage, and unity. A fire that would not be extinguished. Elias Riker and Kylera had faced the first challenge, and they had survived. But the galaxy was vast. And the true test of their bond, their skill, and their determination had only just begun. And as Elias closed his eyes that night, feeling Kylera's presence in dreams and reality alike, he understood something vital. Survival was not enough. They had to fight not just for themselves, but for the freedom of those who could not fight. For the hope of a future where courage and compassion could triumph over oppression, they would face the Empire together. And they would not fail. The fortress had been calm for only a few days. Elias Riker felt a subtle tension in the air as he walked through the corridors. Checking on his team and the defenses they had worked so hard to set up, Kylera moved silently beside him, alert and focused, her violet eyes scanning every shadow. They had faced the first wave of the Empire together, but Elias knew it was only the beginning. That evening, the sky darkened earlier than usual. A storm gathered on the horizon, but it wasn't the wind or rain that made Elias uneasy. It was the feeling that something had shifted, that their hard-won security was no longer certain. He sensed it first in the subtle vibrations underfoot, then in the quiet manner of his team. Mara, normally steady, moved with unusual hesitation. "They're close," Elias said softly, though no one else had yet confirmed it. "Something's wrong." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared from the outer perimeter. Energy readings spiked, and the fortress shook from distant explosions. Ilias's heart sank. "They've found us," he said, his mind racing. Kylera crouched, her body tense, ready to strike at a moment's notice. The first enemy patrols had breached the outer defenses. Not as scouts this time, but as a coordinated strike. Elias realized immediately that this was no ordinary attack. Someone on the inside had betrayed them. The thought struck him sharply, and he scanned his team, looking for signs of fear or guilt. No one betrayed them willingly, he knew. But the fact remained. The Empire knew exactly where to strike. Kylera moved like lightning, intercepting the first wave of attackers. Her strength and skill were overwhelming. She tore through the enemy with precision, striking without hesitation, disabling weapons and throwing soldiers aside. Yet even as she fought, Elias saw the strategy of the attackers. Someone had studied their tactics, anticipated their movements. They were prepared for Kylera, prepared for him, prepared for every defense they had set up. Elise's team fought bravely, using every trick the fortress offered. Traps were sprung, drones activate, and corridors collapsed to block advancing enemies. But the enemy was relentless, advancing with numbers and technology that exceeded their expectations. It was then that Elias realized the terrible truth. The Empire had someone feeding them. Information, someone human. He shouted orders, moving through the chaos. "Cover the east wing. Kylera, take the high corridor. Mara, defend the central chamber." His voice was steady, but inside his mind raced. How had they been discovered? Who could betray them? Amid the chaos, Kylera fought with unmatched intensity. Elias could feel her focus through the bond they shared. She was unyielding, fearless, and precise. But even she could not be everywhere at once. One of the enemy leaders, a towering figure with an energy lance, managed to corner her. They clashed violently, energy and metal sparking against one another. Elias could sense her frustration and determination. But she was outnumbered and eventually forced back. Then, without warning, Kylera was captured. Chains stronger than any Elias had seen before materialized around her, reinforced with alien technology designed to suppress her abilities. She struggled, her strength evident, but the chains held firm. Elias felt her frustration, fear, and anger surge through their bond. She called to him in dreams even as the physical chains bound her, sending fragments of her thoughts, pleas, and warnings. Ilias's heart pounded. He could not allow her to be taken, yet the enemy had anticipated his every move. He watched as she was dragged through the fortress corridors, disappearing into the storm outside. The betrayal was real, and the weight of it pressed on him like a stone. In the aftermath, Elias gathered his team. Their faces were pale, but their resolve was strong. "They've taken her," he said simply, voice firm. And someone inside helped them. "We have to find out who and why. But first, we rescue Kailira." Mara stepped forward. "How?" "They have her secured with technology beyond our understanding." Elias nodded, already thinking. "We adapt. We use what we know, and we use what she's taught us. Kailira's chains are strong, but they rely on control. Every system has a weakness, and every chain can be broken." Over the next few hours, Elias studied the fortress's remaining technology, mapping energy flows and hidden channels that could be used for infiltration. He pored over Kailira's demonstrations from previous days, remembering the tricks she had shown them, hidden pathways, weak points in energy barriers, and methods to redirect or overload power sources. By midnight, he had a plan. It was risky, nearly impossible, but the alternative, leaving Kailira in enemy hands, was unthinkable. He gathered his team and reviewed every detail. "We go in quiet," he said. "We move fast, strike hard, and get her out. Kailira taught us everything we need to know. Now we apply it." The journey to the Empire's holding facility was treacherous. Heavy storms lashed against their small transport ship, visibility was near zero, and the Empire's patrols were everywhere. Yet Elias relied on intuition and Kailira's teachings, moving through blind spots, avoiding sensors, and anticipating enemy patterns. Every choice was critical, and failure was not an option. When they reached the holding facility, Elias surveyed the perimeter. The enemy had created a labyrinth of energy barriers, armed guards, and automated sentries. He felt Kailira's call, faint but unmistakable. She was reaching for him, sending strength, guidance, and confidence through their bond. The chains that bound her might hold her body, but her presence in his mind was unbreakable. Elias signaled his team, and they moved as one. Using stealth, speed, and ingenuity, they bypassed the outer defenses. Drones were disabled with makeshift EMP devices, sensors jammed with improvised technology, and guards silently neutralized. Kailira's influence guided every step, her presence giving Elias insights he could not have gained alone. Finally, they reached the inner chamber where Kailira was held. The chains glowed with an intense energy, pulsing as if alive. Elias studied the mechanism carefully, remembering how he had freed her in the fortress. Using a combination of human tools and Kailira's own methods, he began to dismantle the energy restraints. Sparks flew, the air crackled, and the chains resisted. But Elias did not falter. Kailira's voice, melodic and urgent, filled his mind. He understood her intent. Timing. He adjusted his approach, synchronizing with her movements and strength. Slowly, painfully, the chains weakened. Kailira strained, testing every moment for the right opportunity. Then, with a final pulse, the restraint shattered. Scattering sparks across the floor, she stood, free again, her eyes blazing with determination. Elias felt the rush of relief, pride, and connection. Kailira nodded once, acknowledging him, and then turned her focus to the enemy. The battle that followed was fierce. Kailira moved with unmatched skill, combining her strength with Elias's tactical planning. The team fought side by side, overcoming numbers and technology with ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. When the dust settled, the facility was in ruins, the enemy retreating in confusion. Kailira stood beside Elias, breathing heavily but unbroken. Her violet eyes met his, and through their shared connection, he sensed gratitude, respect, and trust deeper than words could convey. As they returned to the fortress, Elias reflected on the betrayal that had led to this moment. Someone had tried to take advantage of fear and doubt, but human ingenuity, courage, and determination had turned the tide. Kailira's capture and liberation had not broken them. It had strengthened the bond between them, proving that even the most powerful enemy could not overcome the unity of trust and skill. Back at the fortress, the storm had passed. The night sky was clear, stars shining like distant fires. Elias looked at Kailira, standing silently beside him. She had been free before, but now she was stronger, and so were they as a team. The bond forged in dreams, in battle, and in trust had proven itself against overwhelming odds. Elias knew the Empire would return, perhaps stronger, perhaps more cunning, but he also knew this. They were ready. Humans and alien warriors could fight together, combining intellect, courage, and skill in ways the Empire had never anticipated. And when Kalira called, even in dreams, he would answer every time, without hesitation. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and uncertainty. Yet for the first time, Elias felt hope that their combined strength could change the future. They had faced betrayal, captured allies, and near defeat. But through it all, they had survived. And they would continue to fight together for freedom, for justice, and for the bonds that connected them beyond species, beyond fear, beyond chains. The night was quiet, but within the fortress, determination burned like fire. Elias Riker and Kalir, human and alien, warrior and strategist, were ready for whatever challenges awaited. The Empire had tested them, and they had endured. The battles to come would be harder, but the lessons they had learned, the bond they shared, and the courage of humanity would guide them. Elias closed his eyes, feeling Kalira's presence in his mind. Not just a memory, not just a dream, but a living connection. She had called, he had answered, and together they would face the storms of the galaxy. And whatever the Empire unleashed next, they would be ready. The fortress glowed under the first light of dawn, its walls scarred but unbroken. Elias Riker stood at the edge of the central courtyard, his gaze stretching toward the horizon. Kalira was beside him, her violet eyes scanning the distant mountains where the enemy might appear. The air was tense, filled with the quiet hum of anticipation. Today, they would face the Empire once more, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever. "We can't wait for them to come to us," Elias said. "We need to strike first, disrupt their plans, and show them that we won't be controlled." Kalira nodded, her stance ready, every muscle poised for action. She had regained her strength and confidence since her capture, and her trust in Elias had only grown. Their bond, formed in dreams and battle, had become unbreakable. The team moved through the fortress, preparing weapons, reactivating drones, and checking energy shields. Every corner of the structure had been fortified based on Kalira's knowledge of alien tactics and Elias's understanding of human strategy. They had created a network of traps, decoys, and ambush points that would test any enemy foolish enough to attack directly. By mid-morning, the Empire's fleet was visible, hovering over the distant plains. Skiffs and larger ships glimmered in the sun, engines humming with precision. Elias could sense the confidence of their enemy, the arrogance of a force that believed itself unstoppable. But he also felt something stronger, the unity and determination of his team, and the silent guidance of Kalira's presence in his mind. The first wave descended, moving in tight formations. Elias signaled his team, and they activated the first traps. Energy pulses surged through concealed conduits, disrupting the skiff's navigation systems. Several vehicles crashed in controlled explosions while automated drones struck the exposed units with precision fire. Kalira moved through the shadows, striking with speed and strength that seemed to defy reality. The battle was intense. Elias coordinated defenses, using every advantage the fortress provided. Mara and the rest of the team moved in perfect synchronization, anticipating the enemy's movements. Kalira's calls guided Elias, warning him of dangers before they occurred. The humans and alien warrior fought not just side by side, but as extensions of one another, each action feeding into the next. Despite the chaos, Elias felt a moment of clarity. He realized that their bond, formed through trust and understanding, was the true weapon against the Empire. Technology alone would not have won this fight, nor brute strength. It was ingenuity, courage, and the connection between human and alien that made them unstoppable. The Empire had not anticipated such unity. Their forces faltered as traps disoriented them, and Kalira's strikes disrupted their formations. Elias led a small team through a hidden passage. cutting off the enemy's retreat and forcing their fleet into a defensive posture. Every move was calculated, a combination of human creativity and Kylere's ancient combat knowledge, but the Empire was far from defeated. A massive warship descended, its energy weapons glowing ominously. Elias realized that they needed a bold plan, one that would require risk but could change the course of the battle. He turned to Kalira. "We need to lead them into the central courtyard," he said. "The traps there will give us an advantage, but we'll have to lure the fleet carefully." Kalira's eyes glimmered with understanding. Through their shared connection, Elias could feel her agreement. The determination to fight and protect, and the confidence in their combined strength. Together they moved, guiding the enemy fleet toward the courtyard with a series of controlled skirmishes. Each step carefully planned to maximize the trap's effect. As the fleet entered the courtyard, Elias triggered the final defenses. Energy fields surged, entangling the enemy skiffs, while drones attacked from multiple directions. Kalira struck with unparalleled speed, disabling weapons and incapacitating the remaining soldiers. The humans moved in tandem, using agility, strategy, and courage to keep the enemy off balance. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. The Empire's forces were disoriented, overwhelmed by the coordinated assault of humans and Kalira. Elias watched as their warship faltered, its engines failing under the combined pressure of traps, drones, and precise attacks. Victory was within reach, but Elias knew they could not let their guard down. The Empire was cunning and would fight to the last moment. Kalira leaped onto the deck of the warship, her strength shattering barriers and disabling the control systems. Elias followed, coordinating his team to block reinforcements and secure the perimeter. Together, they dismantled the last resistance, forcing the remaining soldiers to retreat. The Empire's fleet broke apart, fleeing into the distance. Leaving the fortress and the surrounding territory under Elias and Kalira's control, when the dust settled, Elias and Kalira stood together in the courtyard, surrounded by the remnants of battle. The fortress had held, and their unity had proven stronger than any empire's might. Kalira's violet eyes met Elias's, and through their bond he felt her gratitude, respect, and trust. She had been freed once, captured again, and now fully liberated, not just in body, but in spirit. The victory was not only for them, but for Kalira's people. Word of her liberation spread quickly, inspiring others who had suffered under the Empire's rule. Reports reached Elias that alien settlements, long oppressed, began to resist and rise against their oppressors. The spark of hope that Kalira and Elias had ignited now spread across the stars. That evening, as the sun set over the fortress, Elias walked through the courtyard with Kalira. The air was filled with the quiet hum of restored energy fields and the soft murmur of humans and aliens alike, tending to their duties. The bond between them had grown beyond dreams or battle. It was a connection built on trust, courage, and shared purpose. Elias turned to Kalira. "We've done more than survive," he said. "We've shown that even against the strongest forces, humans can fight with ingenuity and heart. We've made a difference." Kalira's gaze softened. Through their connection, Elias understood her thoughts clearly. She trusted him, relied on him, and saw him as a partner, not just a human who had freed her chains. Their bond was now a force in itself, a testament to what could be achieved when courage, intelligence, and compassion were combined in the following days. Elias and Kalira worked to secure the fortress and establish communication with neighboring human colonies and alien allies. Together, they planned for the future, sharing knowledge and strategies to resist the Empire and protect those who could not defend themselves. Every decision reinforced the lesson they had learned: unity, trust, and determination could overcome even the greatest of threats. As night fell, Elias rested in the central chamber, feeling Kalira's presence near him. She did not need chains to reach him now. Their connection was unbreakable, extending through thoughts, dreams, and shared purpose. He closed his eyes, recalling the journey from the moment he had first freed her to the victory they had achieved today. Each step had tested them, but each step had also proven the resilience of humans and the strength of cooperation. Kalira appeared in his mind, not as a memory, not as a call for help, but as an equal, a friend, and an ally. Through their bond, Elias could feel the hope and determination of her people, the spark of rebellion spreading across the galaxy, and the certainty the future could be shaped by those willing to fight with courage and wisdom. The stars above Jathara Ix shone brightly, reflecting the promise of a new era. Elias understood that the battles they had faced were only the beginning, but he was confident. Together, humans and alien allies could overcome any challenge, no matter how daunting. The galaxy was vast, but with determination, ingenuity, and the bonds forged through trust and courage, it was possible to change its course. Kalira turned to him. Silent but expressive, her eyes conveying everything words could not. Elias smiled, feeling the weight of their journey and the power of their connection. They had faced chains, betrayal, and overwhelming odds-on they had prevailed. Humanity had once again proven its courage, resilience, and capacity for compassion. Leaving an indelible mark on the universe, Elias knew that their story would continue, that challenges would arise, and that battles would come. But for now, in the quiet of the restored fortress, they had achieved something extraordinary. Freedom, trust, and unity had triumphed over oppression, and together they would face whatever came next. The night was calm, yet alive with possibility. Humans and aliens moved through the fortress, preparing for the days ahead, strengthened by the victories and lessons of the past. Kalira's presence beside Elias was a constant reminder that courage, ingenuity, and compassion could conquer even the most powerful adversaries as he drifted into sleep. Elias felt her call once more, not as a plea, not as a warning, but as a confirmation. They were united, free, and ready to shape the future. And somewhere in the galaxy, others were inspired by their actions, ready to fight, resist, and rise. The story of a freed warrior and the human who answered her call had become a beacon, a testament to the strength of unity and the triumph of courage. Elias Riker smiled as he closed his eyes, feeling the bond with Kalira stronger than ever. Together, they had faced impossible odds, overcome betrayal, and turned defeat into victory. And together they would continue, shaping a galaxy that had once been filled with fear into one where hope, courage, and human ingenuity could shine across the stars.